Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Nonprofits on Course, where we take a dive into the future of nonprofits. I'm your host, Matt Hugg, president of Nonprofit.Courses, where you'll find thousands of free and open access training videos for the nonprofit sector and a lot more. While you're there, don't forget, sign up for the emails. Monday's email every Monday is a summary of our live events calendar, so you know what webinars, podcasts, seminars, things like that are coming up. You can sign up for. Thursday, we focus on a topic. We try to do it in a little bit of fun way, like I think one time was National Speaking Sentences Day. And so we sent people to our communications content because, you know, we don't all speak in sentences all the time. And then also you'll find future editions of this show. So please check it out. Now, today we have a really special show. Our guests are Maria Perez and Walter Willett of Sponsorship Seekers Lounge. Now, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions for our guests, put them in the chat on whatever platform you're using to see this, and Amanda will forward them to us, and we'll try to get to those maybe as we move along, but definitely at the end. And we're recording this, so take notes if you want, but the final versions are going to be in podcast and video form on the NonprofitsOnCourse.com website in the very near future. And and we're going to be talking about some free gifts later. And if you signed up for this through Eventbrite, you'll get an email from us then pretty soon, right after this. And if you are on the recording, go to NonprofitsOnCourse.com and go to the video link, and you'll see a link there so you can get the freebies. So, Walt, Maria, who wants to go first and tell us about yourself?
Maria, please.
Okay. Hi. Thanks for having me today. My name is Maria Perez, and I'm a coach and an advisor. And I've been in the cause and social issues space my entire career. And what I do is I help people fund purpose-driven initiatives, people, organizations, businesses. That's what I do.
Okay, cool. And that's important work for sure. And how about you, Walt?
So I started my fundraising career for nonprofits at a museum many decades ago. And then my career has sort of moved into trade associations. So again, sponsorship, exhibit sales, conferences, raising money for nonprofits. And the past 10 years have been a freelance consultant advising many nonprofits, trade associations, as well as providing brokerage services, i.e. selling directly for them. So.
Excellent. So revenue is your business, right? That's between the two of you. It's all about revenue. Because what do they say? No money, no mission, right? And so
it's so true. I mean, you need the funds in order to fuel the mission and the activities involved.
And if you don't have the mission, nobody's going to give you the money. So kind of circular that way. It's not a bad thing. All right. So my own background is in fundraising, right? I spent a lot of years in it, have a degree in it and all that kind of stuff. And I've always kind of considered sponsorships a variation of fundraising. But, you know, that's maybe not the case. Let's see what everybody thinks. How about we jump into a poll? Everybody who is on the live stream right now, if you take a second and write your answer to this in the comments section, and Amanda's going to upload it for us so we can see what people are saying. Are sponsorships philanthropy? What do you think? Just take a couple seconds, pop that note in there. Tell us what you think about sponsorships and whether they are philanthropy or not. And then we're going to get Walt and Maria's thoughts on that in just a second. So, you know what? We need to have music right now. We need that. That's for the next show. We're going to ding, 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 ding. All right? So let's see. All right. So out of the hundreds, the thousands of inputs here on this, whether sponsorships are philanthropy or not, Walt, what do you have to say about that?
Well, certainly philanthropy is a category all by itself. So when we talk about straight sponsorship, we're typically talking about an exchange, a value proposition. Whereas philanthropy is more supporting a cause, a mission. And I'll hand this one over to Maria. I know she's so effective at being able to communicate the nuanced differences between the two.
So the word that I like to use is patronage, because do you remember back in the day, if somebody liked music or liked somebody's art, they would commission a painting, and they would be a patron of the arts, and they would give them money. And to me, whether it's a corporation or an individual donor, you graciously accept the money and say thank you. And to me, that's patronage philanthropy, but that's not sponsorship. You don't have any fulfillment obligation in that sense. You just say thank you. You just say thank you.
Yeah, the deliverable, the returnable is different. And our friends at the IRS would certainly have something to say about that, at least in the States. And Walt, I imagine Revenue Canada would have its...
very much so.
Yeah, in fact, somebody pops up here and says, yeah, it's not philanthropy, it's marketing for the organization. So, yeah, does that sound about right? I mean, is marketing part of that?
Yeah, I guess you could characterize cause marketing. The bottom line is you need to deliver on audience and value when it comes to sponsorship. So it's really about delivering lead generation, thought leadership, and brand differentiation, and that's goes a little bit further than just exposure and awareness.
Okay, right, because I love it. When people would say, "Oh, well, this will give great awareness for your organization," I'd say, "Yeah, I can't pay the power bill in awareness."
No.
They're not,
and nonprofits know from the world of PSAs that awareness and recruitment is great. It's a piece of the pie, but that's not sponsorship. Brands don't give you dollars. No.
Fair enough. So then let's follow this up with a different question then, kind of related. So are gifts in kind sponsorship? If somebody gives you product or something, is that a type of sponsorship?
Quasi. So the way I like to explain it to people, and I've heard many executive directors of nonprofits get beaten up by their legal counsel. Corporate partnering, like you need 50,000 bottles of water for your runs across North America, and somebody gives that to you. It'll offset, it'll defray a cost. You also say thank you. That's transactional. It's not sponsorship.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Walt, what do you have to say?
I think maybe the similarities may lie in some of the benefits. So if you're giving those 50,000 bottles of water, it's reasonable to say that you would also get some logo recognition. But the transactional element, which is what Maria is alluding to, is very different. It's very different to give product versus cash. Product is offsetting an expense in your whether you're producing an event or running a marathon. Cash allows you the flexibility to spend it on different elements of the production of your event, if that's what it is, or whatever you're fundraising for. So I think there's a real important difference between partnership and sponsorship.
Okay, good to know. So then, what are the biggest misconceptions in sponsorship sales among nonprofits? What are people tending to get wrong or not understanding about what's happening in this
Well, I think they're confusing those three buckets. They think patronage, corporate partnering and sponsorship are all the same thing, and they're not. My favorite way to describe sponsorship is to compare it to advertising.
Okay.
If I come to you and you can deliver audience and a good price, I will work with you, because otherwise I can go to the TV station or the media outlet and buy it myself and not even involve you and not dilute my brand. So who can you put in the room, and can you offer it at a better price?
Well, so is it kind of like, fundraising background, right? I think of planned giving, and you can get a gift annuity or you can get an annuity that's going to pay you more than a charitable gift annuity, but you have to have charitable intent. That's kind of the difference there. Is that play into this, Walt, Maria? What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with annuities, but
yeah. Well, I'm just plan giving generally. I mean, the charitable intent's a big part of that.
Yeah,
but
I think it's the return on investment, the expectation
okay.
that is really key.
Yeah.
And I'd add from sort of the different lens of let's say you want to approach companies and you're approaching them from a sponsorship perspective or a philanthropic, you're probably not talking to the same person within the organization. It's coming from different budgets. So one of the misconceptions that is easy to, to someone that's just starting to fundraise for their organization is, oh, there must be one person that handles this within the company. When in fact, depending on how you're approaching this, if this is true sponsorship, you kind of gravitate more to the marketing people, the sales people that are looking for customers. And so they look at your audience as fertile ground. When it comes to philanthropy, it might be a whole different set of people. It could be their HR people or corporate sustainability, corporate responsibility, those folks that are looking at this more from how does this project our brand, and is this a cause that our company supports?
Okay. No, that's really good. That's very interesting, and I think you're right on spot. I mean, I used to see this when I was doing fundraising that way. If it was smaller, like event oriented or something, it was the marketing people, but then otherwise maybe they had a foundation or something else that for the bigger money or for different kinds of things. So that really resonates. So getting into like the future of things here, now that we've kind of laid out maybe some of the groundwork of sponsorships a little bit, are there changes or new insights into what corporations want or will sponsor related to nonprofit programs coming up? I mean, are the sands shifting at all in that area?
I think because of technology, the expectation for maximum engagement is there. Also, the parity and the affinity. If you are disingenuous with whom you partner, you're going to be in trouble because the consumer is going to see right through it. So, being able to use technology to get data points to confirm, who you have in the room is going to be demanded in the future, I believe. More and more.
Yeah. And more quantitative, you're saying that way.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that sort of quantitative approach and the way that people that are into marketing and are looking at acquiring sponsorship, they're looking at it from that lens of data driven and also much more year round. I mean, even in things like events or conferences of any sort, you want the breakfast sponsored, but the sponsors are looking for more than that. Yeah, we want to sponsor the breakfast and get our logo there, but we also want to reach can we do an activation? Can we send an e-blast? Can we get social media pre and post event? So they're looking for more than just a logo at the event in order to fulfill their needs, from that standpoint of return on investment.
Well, and in big ticket event sponsorship for many years now, folks like Budweiser, it's performance based. They'll give you 25% of the sponsorship, but if you don't win or deliver the fans or deliver the points, you don't get paid. And those models are more and more being adopted across the board.
Okay. So a little bit up front, help you out, but then really the big payoff after you've shown that you can do whatever it is that you've promised to do.
Sponsorship is not a funding strategy. And that's angel investing. That's, angel investing is the best way I can describe it. And again, that's patronage. If I like your mission, if I had a member of my family that suffered from your dis-ease state, I want to support you. But sponsorship, who do you have in the room? And can you give me a good price? And then tell me things about them.
So going back to charitable intent, patronage connects to the charitable intent. Sponsorship is all about what you're giving them in return.
Correct.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
would add, Matt, it's all about your audience. So the more that you know about your audience and can tell a sponsor about who's in that
Mhm.
room, I think that's a great comparison.
All
Is
right.
so important, and we often counsel clients of all sizes. It doesn't matter if you're a small volunteer-run nonprofit or a large trade association. It does come down to the data you have on your audience and how you can uniquely curate that audience on behalf of sponsors that
And
they
Now
could not otherwise get easily.
and honestly, having a nonprofit beneficiary is so critical in these times, and for nonprofits not to recognize that and use that to further their mission is leaving money on the table, and they will serve less people. And while it is a sales activity, they need to have that in their bag of tricks. It's super important.
So you're suggesting that the advantage that the nonprofits are bringing in this relationship is their brand and the fact that they are in some ways softening or at least connecting with that image of whatever product is being sold by the
You
company.
know, back in the day, they used to call it the halo effect. You
Right.
may recall.
Okay.
It's not sufficient anymore. It's
Right.
necessary, but it has to be amplified. You know, you can't greenwashing or talking out of both sides of your mouth is not going to serve a brand. The consumer's going to see right through it. So
Yeah.
having this genuine nonprofit intermediary tie in with parity and affinity is wonderful. Just have to know how to do it. And many
Yeah.
nonprofits don't like that word sales. they,
Yeah.
they don't
Well,
do that, but they do.
Well, and this kind of reminds me of something that I teach in the classes I do sometimes, which is developing an avatar for, like in fundraising, right? Who is your ideal donor? Well, in this case, you want to say you want to develop that ideal demographic type of whoever is coming to your activity or an event. So then
That's
you
exactly
can
right.
sell that to your sponsors
That's
and
exactly
know who
right.
you're talking about. Yeah, that makes a
If you
lot of
if
sense.
you if you call a automotive brand and you say the people that are coming to my gala or my event have indicated that in the next 6 months they're going to purchase blah blah blah, they'll take your call.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really good information. So, next question: what technologies are impacting the sponsorship world? I mean, okay, so we talked about data, and maybe that's more of that we can talk about. Or are there other technologies that are being introduced into you know getting sponsorships for nonprofits?
Hmm. Yeah, certainly technology plays a big role in your sort of day-to-day operations of your campaign. And that's what it is. It's a sales campaign, which
Okay.
is going to require you to research contacts, reach out to them via many different channels. It's not good enough to send one email and then hope that somebody comes back. It's multiple touch points. There's
Well, hope is
social
not a
media.
strategy. Come on.
So it does require leveraging of tools that are out there and that are available to that weren't even available 5 years ago to find information on companies that might be profiled that might match what you're looking to fundraise for, then to be able to find contacts and reach out to them, because as we all know, contacts are changing within companies all the time. So
Yeah.
certainly there's a lot of technology tools out there. Some of them are free, some of them are a bit more expensive or can be purchased monthly on subscription, but that really allow you to effectively manage your campaign and allow you to be very efficient and have these multiple touch points with contacts, because there's just so much noise coming at everyone today that you
Yeah.
need to rise above that.
It hadn't crossed my mind until right now, which I guess is dangerous for this on a show like this. But I think of when I think of fundraising in that way, and I'm making a lot of parallels in my head about this. There are professional prospect researchers, right? Folks who will help you identify people like this. Is that something you find either that nonprofit prospect researchers do, or are there other people who specialize in this kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what we find in our day-to-day practice, because we are sales practitioners, sponsorship practitioners, And we coach many nonprofits. Our typical client profile is an executive director and their development or sponsorship staff. And what we find is something very rudimentary. They crawl down the how hole. They don't know if they don't know how to do it, don't remember how to do it, never learned how to do it, need to hire a prospector. But at the end of the day, with these tools, if somebody just shares with you the process, you can do it yourself. And increasingly, personalization is becoming really important. So combining that personalization, that mission passion with the technology and tools, you're going to be more successful than hiring a prospector. You don't need to hire a prospector. Now, if you don't have the bandwidth and you have some revenue goals that are really significant, yes, then you want to hire a broker, someone that will sell on your behalf. But
well, I wasn't even thinking about selling, but that's a good point. I was thinking about just simply identifying the ones that can come up with that. But it sounds like
we do hear it a lot. Where do I start?
Yeah.
How do I even know who to call?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense because, that's an observation that I think we all know in nonprofit world is that, people, executive directors, I found this a lot, and even development people, they're in it for the mission, and and all the other stuff is learning a lot of times. And so
you should give me money because I do good. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah, not
in the sponsorship game. It doesn't work that way.
I'm not sure if it ever did, but it certainly doesn't now.
Well, and the other missing piece to the equation, the executive directors of many nonprofits are always so charged with so many tasks that finding the time, fundraising often gets put at the corner of the desk. For the people that are sometimes thrust into this role, they're often coming from within the organization, but don't have necessarily a sales background. So part of what we're also very engaged in with so many of our clients are some of the basic 101 sales skills and being able to understand how to work through processes to get to closing deals, answering certain probing questions, developing effective pitch decks that are not too long and don't go into your mission statement too much. So we often find ourselves just coaching on tweaking tactics that help drive that. Fundamentally, it's a sales process you're driving. And so there's a real disparity often in skill sets that can be made up fairly quickly. It's just having the knowledge to know what to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting when you talk about this and how much executive directors have on their plate. Literally just today on the radio, they announced the resignation of a pretty high profile executive director in the region I live in, who came on the radio. The quote was, "I got so much to do in this job. I just need to take a break," because there was just a volume of variety of things. So yeah, it can really be taxing for sure. So are there changes that are happening in how sponsorships will be solicited by nonprofits? Maria, you talked about kind of bringing technology and personal relationships together a little bit. Is that kind of where we're heading, or are we,
there's so much bots and fake things out there that I think the personalization layer is kind of important and sort of makes people realize that you're human. Yeah. And then, you combine your mission, passion, which is super important. That's what drives nonprofit leaders, right? They just embrace what they're there to do. And so we have a term that Walter and I use called chatterboxing. And I compare it to back in the day where you would knock on the door cold, but you also had to warm people up. You'd send them a birthday card. You'd know that they just had a baby. So anyway, we call it chatterboxing, and it's using omni-channel communications tools to really warm people up and be able to get in front of them. So,
and just for everybody's edification, omni-channel is like all the different tools you have, whatever it's social media, handwritten letters, emails, whatever it is, right? Yeah.
And your website can be a very effective place to curate interest. So it's this combination of technology pieces that you have in place that can drive interest. And on the other side, as Maria is saying, through social media, you can introduce yourself to prospects in a non-salesy way by connecting with them simply on a social channel. And then eventually that might foster a discussion. Oh yeah, I remember I connected with that person 3 months ago. So it's all about building relationships, which is really fundamentally sponsorship sales is relationship sales. You want to create relationships with those organizations long term.
Kind of like major gift fundraising. It's all about relationships.
Definitely.
It's that same kind of thing. So tools like Zoom, or not Zoom, excuse me, LinkedIn. Can you leverage that? I mean, that's something that I think everybody engages
all day long, all
Really?
day. It's like putting your ear to the ground. You can see what people are posting about. We use a tool called Apollo that also has, recent news. You can see a press release if somebody had a partnership with so-and-so and what were the details and who managed that discussion. Was it the development director? Was it the brand person? Was there an event? So it's really looking at all those things. And I mean, gosh, I'm old enough to remember the Encyclopedia Britannica, but I wish I had the tools that y'all have now. So you're really just looking and lurking and listening and interacting with these people where they live and seeing what they're talking about so you can identify opportunity.
Well, the one underused, I think, tool that is out there that's free is Google Alerts, right? It goes and just searches the world for whatever keyword you're putting in, and you could put your prospects in there, and it'll feed you what's happening with them so that you can do that chatterboxing. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and what we tell people is what you are ultimately trying to do is you're trying to calendar, you're trying to book a meeting. You're trying to get on a call or a Zoom with somebody to have a chat. And then you need to sit on your hands and do 80% of the listening.
Right. Well, okay, so that brings up something else that is, I mean, ideally, it would be great to go walk into, do the traditional walk in the door, sign into the office building, go up and visit whoever you're supposed to see, right? But today's world, for a variety of reasons, doesn't happen or can't happen, either for distance or for time. People just have their day slotted into certain times now or whatever. So is online, conversations, does that work in this business?
Very much so. I mean, it's ideal, really. It's much more time efficient than having to walk, and drive in the car and do the cold call thing. So certainly communications plays a big role in, as Maria just said, the goal is to book a meeting. It's not to sell the program. It's really to engage the appetite, to connect the dots for the prospects, and then have that meeting where you can elaborate and listen to what they're looking for. And then hopefully your program matches what that sponsor wants. All
right. That's cool. Well, hey, kind of rolling into 30 minutes here. I don't want to take too much of your time, the audience's time. Is there anything else that you think folks ought to know about sponsorships that maybe we haven't touched on?
I think Walter just sort of wrapped it up because, I want to tell all my nonprofit folks that they don't need to have anxiety about doing these calls and conducting discovery. In fact, it should reduce the anxiety because you are there to listen so that you can create a prescription, but you can't do that if you don't diagnose. So instead of telling your mission story for the first 10 minutes of the call, you have to take your mission lenses off and put your sales lenses on, because you will serve more people if you bring in cash. But you can't bring in cash unless you listen to what their pain points are, what they need, and provide a prescriptive solution within your array of purpose-driven initiatives.
That's really cool. So like I teach a class in grant writing, and I say, look at it from the funder's point of view. Correct. What do they need out? What's their mission and how you can fulfill their mission? Correct. So that sounds like what you're talking 100%. About. Walt, how about you?
Yeah, I think as just to kind of build on what Maria is saying, the comfort is in having a structure. So as you're heading into that initial conversation, which is usually crucial. So if you get the meeting booked, heading into that call with an agenda, with a plan, and the plan is that you do less of the talking and more of the listening, being ready with a couple of probing questions. And again, coming back to what Maria was saying, the research is there now, the information is there. A recent press release might talk about a product that is perfect for your audience, and so that's a great segue to do a probing question on that and get them to expand and see if you're right. And oftentimes those conversations then turn into opportunities.
Well, that's really cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I think we've covered a ton of good information on sponsorships. And I want to thank you both very much. This is, I think, a real value to anybody who hears it now is going to hear it in the future. And a couple more things before we go. One is that I understand that you're offering registered participants, folks who registered on Eventbrite, and then, of course, the people who might be listening to this on a recording, a little freebie, a gift or so. What do we got?
We've developed something called Unlimited Sponsorship Leads, which is a mini course. And so this will be made accessible to everyone. It's a short course, it's 3 videos and a worksheet, but it will allow you to kind of really understand chatterboxing, which is what Maria was talking about, and all the nuances of how that can work to build your sponsorship pipeline.
Well, that's cool. That's great. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, go to NonprofitsOnCourse.com and go, if you're listening to the recording, and go to the video link, and that will bring that to you if you're not already registered. If you're already registered, you'll just get it by email straight off. And if people want your expert sponsorship advice, what do they do? How do they find you guys? They either hit your ride north or
website, so they can visit our website. It's www.sponsorshipseekers.com, and just hit the contact button, and we will be in touch shortly to book a call.
That sounds great. Well, thank you both very much. And that's it for today's show. Look for the next episode by subscribing to the Nonprofit.Courses live events emails, which come out every Monday. So you go on the website, Nonprofit.Courses, you will see the pop-up. Just sign up right there and you'll get those. And look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for being with us. And everybody, make it a great Nonprofit Day.